The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for September 7, 2021 is now in session. Councilmember Hayward will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas.
Everyone, please bow. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to arrive here safely. Thank you for life itself. Thank you for all that you've given us. Lord, we come to you today for your guidance and wisdom and support as we begin our meeting. Help us as we engage in meaningful discussion and make decisions for the city, for today, and in the future. Lord, please bless our efforts. Lord, I come asking that all things in this city work out for the good. Father, as we've seen turmoil in the news in Afghanistan and hearing 13 service members were killed, and knowing their families are in need of comfort, please grant them that comfort. Lord, please watch over those that are still being held against their will, and please bring them home safely. Grant this nation joy, peace, and comfort as we're all saddened by this tragedy. Lord, also watch over those that are still dealing with the aftereffects of Hurricane Ida. Watch over those that have traveled or are traveling to render aid to those who are suffering. Now, Father, I ask that you continue to watch over us, guide us, and keep us until our next meeting. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas, on the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Councilmember Hayward. All right, we have a few proclamations. I'll come down to the podium there. Ms. Rebecca Lee, if you can just join me up here at the podium. This is the City of Schertz proclamation. National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, September 2021. Whereas childhood cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children. Whereas 1 in 285 children in the United States will be diagnosed before their 20th birthday. Whereas 46 children per day at 16,790 children per year are diagnosed with cancer in the U.S. Whereas there is approximately 40,000 children on active treatment at any given time. Whereas the average age of diagnosis is 6 for children, and compare that to 66 for adults. Whereas 80% of childhood cancer patients are diagnosed late with metastatic disease. Whereas on the average, there has been 0.6% increase in incidence per year since the mid-1970s, resulting in an overall incidence increase of 24% over the last years. Whereas 2/3 of childhood cancer patients will have chronic health conditions as a result of their treatment toxicity, with 1/4 being classified as severe and life-threatening. Whereas approximately 1/2 of childhood cancer families will bear associated financial due to out-of-pocket expenses and the stress on the family budget. Whereas in the last 20 years, only 4 new drugs have been approved by the FDA to specifically treat childhood cancer. Whereas the National Cancer Institute recognizes the unique research needs for childhood cancer and the associated needs for increasing funding to carry this out. whereas hundreds of nonprofit organizations at the local level and national level, including the American Childhood Cancer Organization, are helping children with cancer and their families cope through education, emotional, and financial support. Whereas researchers and healthcare professionals work diligently, dedicating their expertise to treat and cure children with cancer. Whereas too many children are affected with this deadly disease, and more must be done to raise awareness and find a cure. Now, therefore, be it resolved. It is officially recognized. The City of Schertz hereby proclaims September 2021 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in Schertz, Texas, and support this cause. I'd like to present this to you, Ms. Lee. And if you'd like to say a couple words.
Sure.
I'll hold this for you.
So, wasn't really prepared to say anything, but our family mission now is supporting children who are diagnosed with cancer, because in August 2019, our son Reagan was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma, and then he lost his battle August last year. So we've been without him for a year, but we feel like, we carry on his memory and giving back to those who are in treatment. Just after seeing what everybody, the families and the individuals, the children, what they go through, we just can't turn our backs and walk away. So we've continued to be involved. We would like the City of Schertz to be involved, follow local foundations that give. We have a Battle Pack program that we created, and we just want to provide awareness in September and just bring light to what the children go through and their families.
Ms. Jones? Thank you for joining us today. The City of Schertz Proclamation, National Payroll Week, September 6th through September 10th, 2021. Whereas the American Payroll Association represents more than 29 million residents in our state and approximately 3 million businesses. Whereas these taxes include federal withholding, which goes towards important civic projects, including roads, schools, and parks. Whereas the American Payroll Association and its more than 20,000 members have launched a nationwide public awareness campaign that pays tribute to nearly 150 million people who work in the United States and the payroll professionals who support the American system by paying wages, reporting worker earnings, and withholding federal employment taxes. Whereas payroll professionals in Schertz, Texas, play a key role in maintaining the economic health of Schertz, carrying out such diverse tasks as paying into the unemployment insurance system, providing information for child support enforcement, and carrying out tax withholding reporting and depositing. Whereas payroll professionals play an important role ensuring the economic security of American families by helping to identify non-custodial parents and making sure they comply with their child support mandates. Whereas payroll professionals have become increasingly proactive in educating both the businesses and the public at large about the payroll tax withholding system. Whereas payroll professionals meet regularly with federal and state tax officials to discuss both improving compliance with government procedures and how compliance can be achieved at a less cost to both government and businesses. Whereas the week in which Labor Day falls has been proclaimed National Payroll Week, I hereby give additional support to the efforts of the people who work of the payroll professionals in proclaiming the first week in September as Payroll Week for Schertz, Texas. Ms. Jones, thank you so much. I'd like to say a few words.
I just want to thank you, Mayor, and to the City of Schertz for your continued support and appreciation for the payroll professionals. I'm a resident of Schertz, and I'm also president of our local Alamo chapter of the American Payroll Association, and so we greatly appreciate everything you do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We really do appreciate it every other week, the payroll professionals, let me tell you. All right, we have another presentation. Our Guadalupe Regional Medical Center Prescription Assistance Report. Dr. Jerry Riggs, floor is yours, sir.
Okay. My name is Jerry Riggs. I'm the pharmacy manager at Guadalupe Regional Medical Center, the Prescription Assistance Program. Before I get started on my presentation, though, I would like to announce that I'll be retiring in December of this year. I've got 57 work days left. I actually counted them up today, so I'm excited. At this time, I'd like to introduce my replacement, Mr. Moheb Isaac. He's been with me for about a month now and will continue while I'm there through December training. And so I'm glad to have him, glad to have somebody to replace me at this point. But he will do an excellent job for us at that position. Isaac. Okay, so our presentation tonight is looking at the 6-month period from March through the end of August of this year. So a 6-month kind of snapshot of what the program is doing. During that period of time, we actually helped 907 patients with prescription medication that they could not afford. Most of our program deals with chronic type diseases like cardiovascular, asthma. We do thyroid replacement, several other type of medications, and we also do acute care for the emergency room and patients that are discharged from the hospital that don't have prescription coverage and can't afford their medication. Currently, the number of Schertz residents we see are 27. I think that's up from 18 over the past 6 months or previous 6 months. And the number of prescriptions in that 6-month period we've provided is 21,271 prescriptions, which for a 6-month total as far as retail dollars that you would pay for those prescriptions is almost $6 million at that point. The retail dollars provided to Schertz for their residents that we see, the 27 for the 6-month period, is $156,598. And the number of prescriptions that a Schertz resident of those 27, they get about 3.61 prescriptions per month. So on a 3-month average, one prescription actually would cost a resident $803. And the average retail benefit to a Schertz resident is $11,000, right at $600 per year of benefit to them. The program only charges our patients an amount of $15 a month, and that's kind of on a, if they can pay at that point. If there's needs that they can't come up with $15, we just waive the fee. So we're not demanding of it. It's just good that if they can have a buy-in to the program. Another part of our program we do is for patients that get chemotherapy for cancer and some other treatments. We can provide medications from drug companies to these patients, so when they come in to get treatment, the medication is free. It's just the cost of the infusion therapy. And that amounts to usually about anywhere from $250,000, $300,000 a year that we provide through that. As far as expenses go, we have expenses of about $310,000, $500,000, and we bring in revenue through grants from United Way, the $15 a month payments, and the contributions by individuals and corporations in the Guadalupe County area, and also contributions from Schertz and the city of Seguin. And so we actually have a kind of a net loss of $188,000. The hospital kind of looks at it as a what they call a cost avoidance type program, where it may cost them some money to run our program, but the benefits they get from helping patients and keeping them healthy and keeping them out of the hospital is quite a bit more than what we lose. So that's kind of our benefit to the hospital at this point. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Well, before I open it up to council, just want to say, Dr. Riggs, thank you for providing for our community. Thank you for your dedication on this program, and congratulations on your retirement. I hope you enjoy it. So
we're looking forward to it.
All right.
Little note that I might put in is kind of interesting. My wife and I are both pharmacists, and we both work at the hospital. She retires on December 2nd. I got to wait till December 3rd. She's off on the 3rd, so.
So she's at 56, you're at 57 then.
Well, actually, she only works 3 days a week. She's down into the 40s.
Council, any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Scott.
Yes, congratulations on doing such a fine job and a
Thank
good
you.
service to our citizens who desperately need this. My question for you is about the grants received from the program for United Way. I've noticed it's blank. Have we gotten money in the past and we just didn't
Well,
this year?
we recently received a $8,000 grant for a 2-year period, which actually doesn't start till January 1st. So in the next report, it'll probably show a $4,000 amount in there, and then $4,000 the next year.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Dalla?
So I guess just one question. How would a Schertz resident find out and enroll in this program, or what would they need to qualify for it if they were needing some help with their prescription drugs?
Well, they just need to contact us and explain what their need is. One good thing we have going at the hospital, and the Schertz residents can take a benefit of this, is we have the Guadalupe Clinic for Chronic Disease. So if a Guadalupe County resident qualifies for the indigent program in Guadalupe County, the clinic is free to them. And by going through the clinic, the number of different drugs that we can actually have access to, and they have access to, is multiplied tremendously. So that would be the best option to go through.
Okay, Council, any other comments, questions? Thank you, Dr. Riggs.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Dr. Isaac, welcome aboard. All right, we'll continue with employee introductions. First, we have the fire department.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown, good to see you. We have the honor of introducing our newest firefighter this evening, Acton Hartzell. Acton started with us on August 16th, where he moved here from Washington State with his family. He said he was ready to get closer to his wife's family and, more importantly, I believe, leave the Washington weather behind. They're from Stanwood, Washington, where he graduated high school at Stanwood High, class of 300-ish. They currently live in Buda, Texas, wife and 2 kids, and when we talk about an extensive family, he's talking 70 plus, so he's got something, a fun family reunion. In his free time, he enjoys sports, building, remodeling, swimming, and most importantly, being a dad. Please join me in welcoming Acton to the Schertz family.
Mike's yours.
Thanks for the opportunity. I got kind of last minute notice, so I didn't have a speech plan, but thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the citizens for the opportunity to serve you guys.
Welcome to our team. Thank you. Next, we have the police department.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Dr. Brown. My pleasure to introduce the newest member of our police department family, Ismael de la Cruz. He is a native Texan and was born in San Antonio, where he graduated from Warren High School. He also attended Northwest Vista with his criminal justice. He's been married for 7 years and has a boy which turns 2 in November and has another boy on the way. His uncle was his inspiration to join the Law Enforcement Academy in Corpus Christi, where he started his law enforcement career. Then he made the wise decision to move back up here to be with family. So help me introduce Ismael de la Cruz.
And again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to serve and protect the great city of Schertz, and very excited to be here, guys. Thank you all.
Well, welcome to our team. And we have Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. I'd like to introduce Michael Doss. Goes by Tex, correct? Yes, sir. That's his nickname. Michael has a 9-year-old son. He's got 2 older half-brothers, 1 older half-sister, and a 5-year-old German Shepherd. His first job was at Brad's Oil Change. What he likes to do on this job is the outside work. He likes to be outside. His favorite holidays, Texas Independence Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day. His favorite hobby, being outdoors again. Sports teams, he likes the NFL, the Cowboys, he likes UT, and he likes the Astros. What he likes to do, go on vacation, he likes to go to Thailand or anything tropical. His favorite class in school was history, and his way to relax is, again, being outdoors. Michael Doss.
Well, thanks to y'all for the opportunity to be here. Nothing really important to me, just born and raised right down the road in Seguin. Graduated from there and went to the Navy and came back home. Once I joined the Navy, I thought it was adios Seguin, but no, eventually came back. So, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it, y'all.
Oh, welcome.
Next we have Chris Peacock. He's coming back to us as a street worker too. He has 5 kids, Natalia 13, Alicia 11 years, Derek 8 years, Amelia, 6 years, and a wife, Teresa, with 1 dog. His first job was at Gun Chevrolet service porter. He wants to come back, reconnect with the team to better our streets for the community. His favorite favorite holidays, Christmas, because he loves spending them with family and friends, and making cookies for Santa. He likes traveling with his family. His teams are Houston Astros. His favorite vacation, anywhere to see the Northern Lights. His favorite class was math, and his hobbies are beach trips or camping with the family. Chris Peacock.
I'm glad to be back, so thanks for the opportunity again. I really appreciate it.
Well, welcome, Chris. We'll move on to city events and announcements of upcoming events. Mr. Kell.
Good evening, Mayor. We have a special announcement tonight. The American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association recently presented the City of Schertz EMS with the Mission Lifeline EMS Gold Plus Award. Schertz EMS is a part of an elite group of pre-hospital agencies recognized by the American Heart Association. The award recognizes their commitment and success in implementing a higher standard of pre-hospital care by ensuring that every patient receives treatment according to the nationally accepted recommendations and standards. On Tuesday, September 7th through October 12th, we have the Fall 2021 Adult Cornhole League, 21 years and up, from 6 to 10. They started tonight, just as we got kicked off. On Saturday, September the 11th, we have Paws in the Pool at Payroll Park from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Limited capacity sessions from 10 a.m. at 12 p.m. and at 2 p.m. Registration required on Schertz.com, $3 per human, up to $2 per human. And I know my rescues from the Schertz Animal Control Services are barking it up, so hopefully everybody gets out there. That's good. Ba-dum-bum. All right, on Sunday, September the 12th through October 17th, we have the Fall 21 Adult Kickball League from 6 to 10 p.m. On Tuesday, September the 14th at 2021 is our next regularly scheduled council meeting. And then on Tuesday, November the 2nd, the City of Schertz will be holding its general election on November the 2nd, 2021 for the purposes of electing council members in place 6 and place 7 for a 3-year term from November 2021 to November 2024. A special bond election will also be held on November 2nd, 2021 for or against the issuance of not to exceed $15,450,000 of City of Schertz general obligation bonds for public safety facilities, including a new fire station, and the levying of a tax and payment thereof. Early voting will be by personal appearance will begin on October the 18th, 2021 and ends on October 29th, 2021. Early voting locations will be posted on Schertz.com. And that is it for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kelman. All right, we'll move on to announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown.
Just have one tonight, Mayor. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a new city seal on the top corner of our council chambers. So if you haven't looked at it, I think it's a nice addition. Brian Jackson of our sign shop did that. It's on the outside.
Okay, yeah, we're all looking over here.
Sorry about that. A small but important point.
Did I miss it?
So when you go out and you look up where the clock used to be, we took the clock down, which was broken and unfixable, and we put the city seal. But Brian and his team did a great job with that, went through quite a process, and so we hope that'll be a good addition for the city of Schertz. And that's my only announcement.
Right. All right, announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I have none. So we'll move on. Next is on the agenda is the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. Mayor Pro Tem, will you please call the first speaker?
First speaker this evening will be Daniel Jameson.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Daniel Jameson, 1048 Richmond Drive, Schertz. Actually, this is in reference to the events from July. The first was the 4th of July festivities. I thought that was an excellent parade and all the events that took place on that day. Mary Spence did an excellent job in organizing that thing. The parade that happened on my mom and dad's 64th wedding anniversary. They really enjoyed that. They said, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, who presented them with the pin and everything, and the first responders, they just really enjoyed it. I will be sending Mayor Pro Tem some pictures of that event, and she can share it with the council as they deem to take a look at that. But on behalf of the family, thank you very much, Mayor and City of Schertz, and allowing them to be a resident for over 50 years. And now we're expecting our 5th generation to be living here in Schertz coming probably about January or February. So it'll be 5 generations growing up here in Schertz. Thank you very much.
All right, next up will be Dana Eldridge.
Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive, Schertz, Texas. Got to put my reading glasses on. I brought notes today. I have some observations over the last several council meetings and some things that have been going on around the city. I was watching a budget thing last week, or a couple weeks ago, and the manpower numbers didn't change a whole lot for the city. But I got to looking at it, and the number of people that we continue to have come up and be introduced as new employees, I'm wondering what's going on with our manpower. Are we turning them over? Are we getting retired? You know, why? And then we talked about a merit system. If we're using that, we should be able to keep some employees, I would think. That's just an observation, okay? The other observation is going through this week's agenda, there's some more things on Main Street, and then there's some stuff out on 35. I'll probably talk more when I get back up here. You'll get tired of hearing me tonight, maybe. But I've driven down Main Street a couple times here recently, a couple times at night. My grandson lives way over, and I get to take him home sometimes. In reading this, we're trying to make Main Street more historical, or keep it a historic type district. I drove down there tonight. I got a bright yellow and green building that used to be white and red on Main Street. I got purple trucks on both sides of the street. At night, I have lights stringing from Main Street to Exchange Street next to our bank at a winery or a bar. I see in a thing tonight, we've got a vacant lot getting ready to, or that's been sold or whatever, and it's already got a sign up that says they've already applied for their liquor license. And then you drive down Schertz Street, or Schertz Parkway here, and right down the street here, not too far from the high school, there's a big yellow sign up on top of the building that says, liquor store coming soon. I'm not quite sure I understand everything that's going on. You got buildings, industrial buildings you're going to put out on 35. I've been here 25 years, almost 26. I'm still waiting for an Olive Garden or Texas Roadhouse or something like that, rather than Garcia's or Abel's, or, you know, we seem to be more interested in industrial complexes rather than the city, the residents of the city of Schertz. You don't mind us driving to New Braunfels or Live Oak or whatever to find a nice eatery. Come on, guys. These are some observations that are being made, and hopefully I'm not the only one.
Mayor Pro Tem, please call the next speaker.
Next up will be Janine Graham.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff, and residents of Schertz. I was given a few minutes today to just introduce myself to you all. I'm Janine Graham. I'm running for City Council, place number 6 in November, and I just want to give you a little history about myself. I am a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Yes, the city of brotherly love. I come from a long line of community leaders, 3 generations to be exact, none of which who have gone the political realm, so I'll be the first. I joined the Army in 1999, served 20 years and 13 days. I mention the 13 days because every day I spent in the military was special to me. I served in 2 different campaigns, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. My position in the Army was human resources for 20 years. I've served several different jobs, to include Army recruiter, master resiliency trainer, postal officer, safety officer. Anybody who's been in the military can relate. It's been many jobs. And I take pride in each and every one of them. Out of all the assignments, I've been into Fort Benning, Georgia, South Korea, Germany, Fort Meade, Maryland, Fort Hamilton, New York, Fort Sam, Houston, and finally, Fort Riley, Kansas. Out of all of my assignments in my life, the most important assignment to me was being a mother to my 2 children and a grandmother to my 2 granddaughters, and I take that with pride. I stand ready, able and willing to stand for all of the citizens of Schertz with the experience that I've had as a child and as an adult. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you guys today. For the city council members, if you haven't noticed yet, I sent the email to each and every one of you, just inviting you out to talk with me so that I get a chance to know you and you can get a chance to know me. For the city of Schertz, I stand as a fresh voice for all of you. Thank you. Have a good night and God bless.
All right, next up we have Judith Williams.
I'm not as good as she is. I wrote my speech. Oh, no, you did very good. Okay, good evening, Mayor, council members, Dr. Brown, and City Attorney Santee. I am Judith Williams, and I stand before you with appreciation and enthusiasm for the opportunity to be a candidate for the city of Schertz. Over the past few weeks, I have spoken with some of the most wonderful people who live right here in Schertz. Each conversation has inspired me even more to want to be a council member, to serve and represent the citizens of Schertz. I believe my professional career, my continuous work as a volunteer, my life as a mom, and being the wife of a United States Marine have given me a very strong foundation to serve as a council member. I have over 20 years of public service. I have worked as a contract specialist for the departments of the Air Force and the Navy and the United States Marine Corps. I also worked as a contract administrator for the city of Ocala. My initial immersion in the world of city council was during my time with the city of Ocala. During those meetings, I witnessed the inner workings of city council making tough decisions for the community, the disappointment and satisfaction of city residents and those wanting to do business with the city. And I also witnessed the impressive collaboration between the mayor, council members, and the city manager. My personal experience there cemented my dream of wanting to become a local official. In addition, I have also worked with the military families as a mentor and assisted active duty service members during their transition to civilian life. Each of my professional roles have enhanced my ability to work with an array of personalities, sharpened my skill of being patient, and taught me to listen and listen very well. I have lived on the East Coast and the West Coast and overseas, and what I know is that no matter where one lives, we all want a safe community, an economically thriving community. We want the best education for our children. Entrepreneurs and small businesses want to be supported and have resources that will help them flourish. And we want a community that does not forget about their military veterans and their senior citizens. And of course, we all want exceptional leaders to lead our community. I have made difficult decisions. I've had to justify those decisions and collaborate with others to reach amicable decisions. I am unequivocally prepared to serve the citizens of Schertz as one of their council members. Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda items. Are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, approval of the minutes of the special budget workshop meeting on August 6, 2021, and minutes of our regular meeting on August 24, 2021. Item number 2, resolution number 21R96, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Half Associates Incorporated for design, bid, and construction phase of engineering services for the FM 1518 Aztec Lane Water Facility Relocation Project in advance of the TxDOT FM 1518 Road Widening Project and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, resolution number 21R93, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, joining the state of Texas and political subdivisions of a state as a party in the Texas opioid settlement agreements secured by the Office of the Attorney General, authorizing the city manager to execute settlement participation forms and establishing an effective date. Item number 4, ordinance number 21T34, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2021 budget to provide funding for construction of the Aviation Heights Waterline Improvement Phases 5, 6, and 7 project, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is also our final reading. Mayor Pro Tem, will you please read the remaining consent items?
Item number 5, ordinance number 21-T-35, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an adjustment to the fiscal year 2021 budget to provide services to Randolph JBSA, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. This is also the final reading. Item number 6, resolution number 21-R-94, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, reappointing Mr. Brian Edgington to the Board of Directors, place D4 of the Cibolo Valley Local Government Corporation and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 7, resolution number 21-R-98, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing a task order agreement with Kimberly Horn Associates Incorporated for professional engineering and architectural related services on the Main Street Improvement Project and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 8, resolution number 21-R-95, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an extension to the management services agreement between the City of Schertz and the Cibolo Valley Local Government Corporation, CVLGC, for management services and other matters in connection therewith.
All right, council, do any of these items need to be pulled for separate action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 8?
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Brown. Council, any other comments? If none, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. We'll move on to discussion items. Item number 9, ordinance number 21M40. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the City of Schertz Code of Ordinances for certain other ordinances by amending and establishing fees for certain licenses, permits, and other services provided by the City of Schertz. This is our first reading. Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
Good evening. My name is James Walters. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Schertz. We have before you the annual update to the fee schedule. In tradition or following from last year, there's not a whole lot in here that is meant to generate additional funds or cover anything. A lot of them are changing, simplifying the fee schedule, removing fees that we really don't use anymore, as well as setting and separating some fees for recreational activities. Most notably some volleyball, spike ball, basketball, pickleball rentals. Those are new services. Not really meant to generate a lot of money, but it'll just cover the cost of the equipment as it's rented. The inspections, the plan review, the 15% administrative fee we're going to remove. We haven't used that in a while. An interesting one on the fire permits, the combustible liquid tanks, or basically some of the propane tanks. The state has come in and said, we're the only one that can really review these. So all we do now is they apply to us, we know where it is, we kind of take a look, yep, that's where it is on the property. So there's no need to charge $150, and we're dropping that down to a more reasonable amount for the staff time that it takes to actually just check to make sure they're putting it in the right spot. Other than that, we have the sewer and water impact fees, or not impact fees, but the water service fees, actually approved by council at the end of July. Now we're incorporating them in the fee schedule, so that'll be a change in the fee schedule, but those rates are already in effect.
All right, council, any questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21M40?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion by Councilmember Whitaker, second by Mayor Pro Tem Dalla. Council, any other comments? If none, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Item number 10, resolution number 21R86. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the renaming of Gutierrez Xeriscape Park to Gutierrez Garden Park. Mr. James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. As many on council know, Gutierrez Garden Park, which was dedicated to us by the Gutierrez family in 1998, we've worked in partnership with the Guadalupe Master Gardeners Association to maintain that park. They do a lot of the plantings, things like that. They approached us about changing the name, not taking away the Gutierrez name, but removing the Xeriscape Park. Again, a lot of people in the public have a certain connotation when they hear Xeriscape. It's a bit of a misnomer, they felt. So based on some conversations with the family, going to the Parks Board, what we have is a resolution to simply rename it to Gutierrez Garden Park. You may note there is the old sign there, the wooden one says Gutierrez Xeriscape Park. We're not planning to take that down. We'll add a little bit of signage explaining the name change. But rather than take that sign out that's been there that some people probably like, we'll wait till over time because its wood deteriorates, then we'll swap it out at that point. So again, we think it's a good change. Hopefully, again, it makes folks more aware of what's going on in our parks. So staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. James. Just to make a note, I did reach out to the family. They actually had no objections to having the name change.
Thank you.
All right, council, any comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion by Dr. Scagliola and second by Councilmember Hayward. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. And we have a few public hearings. The first public hearing is ordinance number 21S37. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the comprehensive land use plan by changing approximately 42 acres of future land use map from commercial campus to commercial light industrial land use designation, as well as add text for the new land use designation, commercial light industrial, in the Schertz sector plan, located 2,500 feet east of the intersection of Herbertus Road and Interstate Highway 35, also known as Comal County Property Identification Numbers 75290 and 75369, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas, first reading. Mr. James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me give you a little bit of background on this to help explain why this item is coming forward. Essentially what we do is we have some folks who want to develop 118 acres in Schertz for industrial uses. The property is generally on the north side of IH-35, as you can see. It's between Hubertus and Friesenhahn roads. The property is interesting because the front part of the property is zoned general business, essentially back to about 700 feet of depth. The remainder of the property is zoned M1, light manufacturing. So the M1 district allows them to do what they want, the front part doesn't. So thus they need to come forward and ask for a rezone. This is where it gets a little bit complicated from there. And the issue has to do with the land use designations in our comprehensive plan. And as you know, zoning should be done in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The property is designated as commercial campus. And that's generally the designation for most of the mid-block areas on both sides of IH-35. And I'll give you a little bit of graphic that sort of shows here. Generally, that's the pink. The red is highway commercial. And for most, with the exception of Northcliffe, that's what you have as the land use designation up and down 35. The other part of it that's interesting is while the commercial campus makes reference to allowing potentially some light industrial uses, the city has come in and zoned that front strip of property for general business, up and down 35. And so staff has interpreted the comp plan language to mean those industrial uses potentially allowed in commercial campus or further back beyond that. And so thus, because a number of different land uses are allowed under that designation, staff was not supportive of rezoning to light manufacturing because of that. So the applicant said, then what we need to do is come forward and request an amendment to the comprehensive plan to make that clear. Because, and that's what we're here with this item today. This is an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan. And the fundamental question that staff sees is to what degree council wants to retain this zoning of general business up and down IH-35 the whole way. And that's been in place since the original comp plan was adopted, so over 20 years ago. And we've not really had a conversation with City Council in the meantime about this. We've had a few cases kind of come through. But the question really is, to what degree do you want to preserve that GB up and down? So in discussing with the applicant, understanding what they wanted to do, rather than amending the comp plan as they had proposed, staff had some concern that if we did that, it would set a precedent potentially for both sides of IH-35. And as folks have talked about, generally on the south side of 35, a little bit off the frontage road, we have single-family residential neighborhoods. And so staff's concern was if we made this amendment to the zoning based on that comp plan district and the request, it would create a problem potentially of having people wanting to do industrial zoning on the south side right next to the residential homes. So staff at the Plan and Zoning Commission said, if you're open to doing this, we would recommend that you actually amend the plan going forward and create a new land use designation, commercial light industrial. And that language in the comp plan would stipulate it's really only for the north side of 35, not the south side where it's by residential, and it's not for those hard corners at the intersections. But staff's initial recommendation at the Planning and Zoning Commission was for denial. This was the vision that we had set out. We hadn't had conversations about changing it, but staff acknowledges there are some merits to the applicant's proposal in terms of those mid-block sections, not having as much access on those roads that run parallel like Hubertus and Friesenhahn, the fact that topography creates some issues, the fact that on and off ramps create some issues, and the fact that often with the form we're seeing industrial built in Schertz these days, it's not what we historically thought of as industrial. It's not belching smoke or things like that. It tends to be spec, has an office component with warehouse and storage component like we see off Lookout Road, and like you can frankly sort of see from 35 over in the Verde Business Park. They're not always necessarily right up against the road. So item went to Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the change. So staff recommended approval of the change, but the commercial light industrial to limit it. But to be clear, fundamentally this issue is about to what degree do we want to hold to that vision of maintaining general business, retail, office, and service uses on the frontage of IH 35. And if council says, nope, that's really our vision, we don't want to move away from that, then you would deny this. If there's an openness to allowing some, we came up with some language to try to limit it going forward. So that's generally what's here before you. It was initially noticed as 118 acres, the applicant's full property. They came back subsequently and said, look, we really just need the front part that Zone GB amended because we've already got the industrial designation right behind it, even though it's not consistent. And so what they're actually asking for tonight is that 42 acres across the frontage.
Thank you, Mr. James. This is an open public hearing, but we do have the applicant here, so we'll go ahead and allow you to give us your presentation.
Covered most of it
already. That's exactly all right. Your fancy video.
That's right.
All right, I'll leave you to it.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James McKnight. I'm a land use attorney from Brown & Ortiz representing the applicant tonight, that's IDV, who is, as Brian said, proposing to develop a 118-acre site for basically warehousing and then the front portion to be flex office space, so offices and some warehousing in the back. So he already showed you the site, so I won't linger on that. That's the 118 acres, an aerial shot. That's the 42 acres along the front. That's the portion that is right now GB. And I'll say this up front. There's two items here. There's a comp plan amendment item and there's a zoning item. This presentation actually covers both because they're sort of related. So you'll just have to trust me that it's both there as I'm going through this. So that's the portion that's now GB that we're asking for, GB2, and just a portion of M1 that's in the back just to expand that. As Brian showed you earlier, this is the comp plan. I don't have as clear a picture as he does, but you know, all of it right now is commercial campus, and we're just looking to change the front. Initially, we asked for highway commercial, which is what you see on the corners, but we are now in agreement with staff for this in-between or new land use category for commercial light industrial. This is a site plan showing the buildings that we're proposing. They're kind of hard to see here, but you'll get a better picture of them in a minute. Just showing along the front, these are skinnier office flex spaces, and in the rear, that's where you're getting the larger, more distribution type warehouses, and those areas are actually already zoned correctly. So really all we're talking about is just those front portions here at the bottom of the screen that's along the highway. Again, here's the proposed zoning. You can see the GB in light blue, and we're proposing this GB2 just up front. And this is a site plan showing the separation between the zoning. And here you can see the blue line separating those buildings that are along the south, or I'm sorry, that are along the bottom of the screen here. And this is a flyover we prepared to show you the full proposal of what we'd like to do. More to present, but at this time I did want to introduce Tim Harrington. So he's with IDV, and he wanted to give a little bit of background about some of the actual uses of the buildings themselves.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, City Council, thanks for your time this evening. My name is Tim Harrington. I'm with IDV. So we have envisioned a Class A business park here for Schertz. We've done a number of these across the state of Texas, and we've had tremendous success attracting everything from Fortune 500 companies to local regional companies. We've already had multiple discussions with users that are interested in this site, and the feedback has been extremely positive from the market. This site in particular has some very, some unique development challenges. It's got a lot of topography across the site. There's over 80 feet of drop from I-35 frontage to the rear of the property. The rear of the site is already zoned industrial. And so our vision is to make this, the frontage will have very much an office feel with glass, landscaping, trees that will shield the truck doors and make this feel like a business park. Now, there will be, your more traditional distribution uses in the back where it's already zoned industrial, but it will be a coherent development. And it's really needed for this site in particular because of drainage challenges, topography challenges, and access challenges. There's a recently installed entrance ramp on I-35 and existing driveways that limit the access to this site in particular, as you can see in this diagram here. So from a use type perspective, there's really only 2 spots to achieve driveway cuts along this entire frontage along 35. So when you think about this from a retail or general business use type, you need more access than just 2 driveway points to really bring in retail customers and to service this type of, this acreage size would need more than just 2 driveway cuts for a retail use type. So, with all those things considered, and in addition to the topography and the need to grade across the entire site, we feel that this master plan business park will be a great addition to Schertz. And again, the use types in here, we typically see architects, engineers, surveyors use the office portion in the front of these buildings. You also see cabinet makers, plumbing, AC, all those types of use types in the front, and in the back, your more traditional distribution.
So Tim already described some of the access challenges and why, because we're trying to show why this site is difficult to just have all retail, just have GB up and down the highway, why there are portions of the city, especially in these mid-block areas, where this light industrial use is more appropriate, and one of these reasons is just the site itself. This is the access issue. This is showing the topography of the site and the sectional drop that you see from the highway down to the back of the site. Now, that's significant because in order to grade it properly, you're really going to lose about 12 feet off of the front. And so if you had a retail, imagine your typical retail site that was on the highway, it would drop actually below the highway, and so you're not going to get the same kind of height. When you're driving on the access road, you'd see almost the top of a typical retail building, whereas these are 30, 35 feet tall and more appropriate, and would look more appropriate, almost like a retail business with the glass and the design that we're proposing. Also one of the challenges, we're talking about the topography and the access, those are very specific. Generally, I show this aerial just to show that retail is difficult in this area just because of the large scale of it, and that we're not next to these large cross streets that can draw a lot of retail. We don't have all of the residential on the north side of the highway that really drives the retail people into these, restaurants and things. You're not picking up people that are driving along the highway. Restaurants are looking at sites that are surrounded by rooftops. And so this is one of those mid-block areas we think is perfect to have this kind of light industrial use, so that industrial or the warehousing is in the back, but in the front still retains the look and feel of a retail site. Brian pointed out, some of the differences between the north and the south. I had a slide for that as well, just showing how deep that the plan is on the north side compared to the south, and that's because you don't have the residential developments on the north side that you do on the south. So these are very different areas. And again, we're only asking for the first, the 42 acres that are along the front, so we're not actually pushing all the way to the back anyway. Some of the challenges that Brian brought up that we're sort of in the middle of was the difference between the description of a commercial campus, or campus commercial, and the highway commercial. The campus commercial says that it could accommodate this light manufacturing and flex office, but as you've seen, if it's all GB, you're not really getting those. So in the mid-block areas, you're not going to have the light industrial. So then let's put them in the highway commercial. Well, the highway commercial is at the cross streets where you want your heaviest retail. So you have your light retail in the middle, you have your heavier retail segments on the corner, which means light industrial, these flex office spaces don't have anywhere to go. They're in neither category. So that's that gap that we're in right now. And staff, I thought, had a great solution in saying, we're missing out on this whole brand of use that can be very lucrative, and that's where we fall, is that commercial light industrial. So again, we're in support of staff's suggestion and would accept the land use of commercial light industrial with the zoning of GB2 to go with it. These are some of the, I added some red text since the P&Z meeting, but we had added text to the highway commercial description as a way of trying to find that in-between space, because there was this gap. We were trying to find a way to fit ourselves in. So all the things that we had actually proposed to change in the text are the items that essentially staff took and said, okay, that's the light commercial. It's allowed in some of those the mid-block areas, but it would be on the north side of the highway. It wouldn't be next to residential. It would have some intensive uses, but they'd be low impact. You'd have concealment of all the delivery vehicles, which we're proposing. So all of the changes that we had suggested to make to the highway commercial is what staff essentially adopted to make the commercial light industrial. And so this is my conclusion, that we're asking for two different things. One, we're asking for the land use or the comp plan amendment to commercial light industrial for the 42 acres, and then subsequently the zoning of GB2 to allow the flex office space on the front. And then the M1 just kind of gets expanded to allow the site plan, basically, that we have drawn. That's it. And I'm here for any questions. And we have our engineer from Pape Dawson is here as well. Thank you.
Okay. This is an open public hearing, so we're going to allow the public for their input. Again, this is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone here in attendance who would like to address the council regarding this subject? Okay. For the record, please state your name and address, please.
I already did that. Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive, Schertz, Texas. I used to be a mailman for 20 years and drove several long distances to the post office I worked out of. This reminds me of the drive going down 35 into town, having a whole bunch of warehouses along the highway and nothing there. A little concerned about that. We've got a new exit for 1103 coming from southbound on 35. You're going to run into some serious traffic problems, especially if people are coming out of there and wanting to make a U-turn up at 1103, come back north for the long run there, and coming off south, you got people, we've got enough problems out there with everyday traffic getting banged up. I just am not sure that it's the best solution for all that property. But doesn't look much different than the other side of 3009 where we got all that industrial stuff back in there. So I guess Schertz is going to become an industrial complex, according to what I'm hearing from the council right now. I don't know. Are the residents not worth something better?
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to address the council? We can't hear you. If you step up.
Sorry about that. Bradley Bedner, 107 Elm Leaf Lane. All right. Hey, the truth. Kind of what I'm wondering is, I kind of would like to know a little more about it. Like, all right. Schertz is a small city. I know that Schertz is a small city, and all right. Whenever it comes down to it, like. All right, like, we're probably gonna have people come in from other, like San Antonio,
excuse me, if you can just speak into the mic so we can hear you.
We're gonna have people coming from San Antonio to this spot and everything, right? So, if we put something there like that, we're gonna have the positions to fill for it, right? Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, right? Like, because it's 180 acres of industrial, right? And I guess my point of it is if it gets, like, it's gonna get filled, right? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, we can't have a two-way conversation. This is just for you to tell us how you feel about this.
You know what? I'm with it. I'll put it like that. I'm with it. All right.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Going once? Going twice? Public hearing is now closed. All right. Council, floor is open for discussion. Yeah, well, we'll go with Councilmember Brown.
Nobody can see me down at this end. One, good presentation, thank you very much. That side of I-35 is, we've intentionally over the years kept it non-residential, all right, on purpose for a lot of different reasons. We know that we need business, we know that we need different things in the city, and we don't want to mix industrial, manufacturing, warehousing, and residential on the same side if we can. So a long time ago, the city leaders decided that that side of 35 was not going to be residential, okay? And over time, we're going to see more and more of this type of development We're not going to see somebody come in with a steakhouse and just plant it on frontage road. It's just not going to happen. All right, but if we bring in quality business developments like this, that'll give us the income and the money for our citizens to spend on a restaurant, which might indicate that the developers and whatnot would say, oh, hey, Schertz, they're spending a little bit more money on going out to dinner. Maybe we can put another restaurant there. All right. Trust me, we get, we have contracted for reports in the past where we watch the leakage reports, where we know where our citizens are spending their money on credit cards. They're not spending money for dinner in Schertz. They're going other places. So why would a developer want to come to Schertz to put something in if they're not going to spend money there? So what we need to do is we need to develop a little bit more income producing jobs, but something along this line. You're out there on the far side of 35. It's a quality looking development. It has a office, Class A office feel up front, which is where everybody's going to see it. We all have seen changes over the last few years. We're not going to see the same number of malls. We're not going to see big retail development like we used to. We're going to still have them. They're not going away totally, but it's not going to be to the extent that we're going to see a Forum and Creekside, things like that, going up as much as we used to. And in the old days, our Schertz industrial park was designed for just that, industrial. And it's been very, very successful over the years, and it doesn't impact our residential side. And boy, it's attracting light retail in there. So, we got to start someplace. There's nothing up there. This is basically agricultural out there. So, in my mind, I'm looking at this as a quality project in the right direction, and something that we should certainly, I think is very creative in the new nomenclature that you all came up with. So thank you for the hard work on that. But yeah, I think it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Okay, Councilmember Hayward.
I kind of understand the whole concept of economic and growth and industrial, but at the same time, Brian James, when the city said GB, what was the thought process behind that?
So I wasn't here then.
Okay, so.
But I'll speculate. My understanding is we basically said, look, we know we want retail. We've always talked about, we know we want service. We know we want office development. And so to get that, we're going to zone these 700-foot strips up and down both sides of 35 as GB. And so I think the intent at the time was to get retail, service, and office uses going forward. I think the question we're dealing with now really is, to what degree was that done to preserve those areas that are likely to develop as that, versus we truly think that the entire thing will develop as that going forward? I think that's the challenge. And so I want to be real clear on staff's position. We initially recommended denial. We're recommending approval now. But part of staff's position is to limit where we're making this change, because staff very strongly feels those areas that are most likely to develop for retail, service, and office, we need to protect those and not change the zoning. And those really are at those intersections. And you'll notice that this property doesn't even go all the way over to the highway commercial. And so from a staff perspective, we're not even comfortable taking the entire mid-block all the way from highway commercial to highway commercial at those intersections, doing the industrial. We would leave a significant buffer to provide for that. And that was really staff's concern. The other part was, we don't feel like we want to encroach on the south side whatsoever. So this was a little bit of a compromise position for staff. We still hold that we need to preserve that, but maybe not quite as much as we did going forward entirely, is really our position. And like I said, we have not had this conversation with council. We weren't really sure where council stood on it, so I want to provide some options for you.
Okay, Councilmember Scott.
Yeah. I know that 10 years ago, my husband and I, we were talking, and we were saying, man, Schertz just looks like a trucking destination. Really, all there are warehouses and trucks. And it has gotten, it seems to me, more so. I'm not saying it doesn't have its charm and appeal. I love Schertz. I've lived here, 23 years. I adore Schertz. We came here before we lived here. But he had a point, and the more I opened my eyes, I was like, wow, yeah, okay, I see that. The video, it's beautifully done video. I couldn't help but think, this is kind of deceptive. There were not enough trucks in that video. I have been on 35 where I feel like a minnow in a sea of whales. All there are trucks, 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 trucks. There's a lot more of those, and then all the nice green landscape in back of it, that's going to get gobbled up, and it won't be very long. There won't be charming green fields in back of it. There's going to be concrete. That's just the reality. We all live in the same world. So, and I don't know the answer. To say, no disrespect to anybody, I love everybody on council, but to say that people are not spending on restaurants in Schertz, they're going other places, that's because we don't have the restaurants here. We don't have a steakhouse or an Olive Garden or what have you. I remember when I was on EDC, every time a restaurant was coming, we'd all rejoice, and then it would be like a fried chicken place or a Mexican food place or something, or Subway at the end of, 78 or whatever. And 35. And that, by the way, only has one entrance into it, and it's busy all the time. There aren't even two, and that's at 75 and 3009, I'm sorry, 78 and 3009. So that's also very debatable, and that's open for debate on that one. And so I don't say any of this lightly. I mean, we all live in the same world. We want to maintain our charm. I love looking at the cows in the fields on the way to work and all of that. But I know growth is coming. I know it's coming with a vengeance. We can't help it. And as there's more upheavals in the country, more and more people are coming here. And it is also the military retiring here, but there's also other transmigrations. The world's very much in upheaval right now. We're caught in the crossroads. I was reading in U.S. News and World Report, the fastest growing city in the United States, a sleepy little town. It was New Braunfels, Texas. That's right up the road. We're right in the middle between there and San Antonio. So I know we can't hold it back. I know that, Brian. I do. And I don't know the answer to it. I'm super, super conflicted about it. I don't want Schertz to just be a destination, trucking destination or distribution or warehouses or whatever. I do think our residents do deserve more amenities, like on Live Oak at the corner of that of the big hill. Now they're building Restaurant Row over there, and it's nice. Amenities are awesome. I love it. My question for you, I didn't take the, raise my hand, just a vent. I actually have a point here, but I do want to express, because it's in my heart, I really do. My question for you is, do you think that changing this designation would actually prohibit the heavy industrial from abutting up to the housing development on the other side of the freeway?
So to be clear, and probably I wasn't clear in my presentation, so for that, no, you're okay, so I apologize. So to be clear, we're in no way talking about heavy industrial. That staff's had a lot of conversation with folks and should not be anywhere near the frontage of 35 for heavy industrial. What we're talking is light industrial, and light industrial allows, frankly, it's those office, warehouse, distribution uses that the applicant has proposed. So to be clear for folks, we're not talking heavy industrial, but we are talking a change from what the zoning allows, and it's not insignificant, so I want to make that clear. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mayor Pro Temp Dalla.
So I did get a chance to add it all up real quick. We're looking at about, 1.4, 1.5 million square feet?
Yes, sir.
And I would imagine probably upwards of about $100 million investment. So, saying yes to something just because it's a big project and brings a lot of money in is not always the right thing to do. You got to look at it in the context, and like we talked about earlier in a subcommittee meeting on residential stuff. Does it fit? Is it in the right place, and does it meet a need that we have? And having that entire frontage road as GB, we're never going to have enough retail development to fill all that. And so looking at an alternative way to do this and putting something like this in a mid-block situation where we're protecting the hard corners, where we're taking steps to protect the south side of IH-35 to minimize the impact on the single-family developments that are there. I think this is a good place to put together a project like this, and certainly I think it's how we've gone about looking at doing it to amend the comp plan is the proper way to do it, and I think this is a good thing to do.
All right, Councilmember Whitaker.
So I have a question. What, if we're looking at impact to residents and, what this looks like for the future of Schertz, what is the economic impact of putting in this development here as far as, well, economic impact?
Sure. So, well,
generally speaking, I'm not asking for numbers.
No, understand. I can't give you that. So I'll say this. One thing that we talk about a lot with staff is when property's not developed, we don't generate a lot of revenue, but there's not a lot of cost for service either. So it's fairly neutral. We don't have to go out there very much. We don't have to provide services. When property develops, that generates revenue, generates ad valorem, generates sales tax, things like that. That being said, staff has never taken the position, nor has our council, we got the impression, taken the position that it's all about maximizing revenue for the city. It's about creating the kind of community we want for Schertz. Now, that being said, there are some realities that the more non-residential development we have, it offsets the taxes that our residents pay, and it helps bring that down. It also provides revenue for our school districts as well, but we need the proper mix. Since I have been here as well, I have heard all we get are fast food restaurants and fried chicken places. We just want a Cracker Barrel. But I think to Councilman Brown's point, the question is a little bit, how much of that do we need? One of the issues here is the depth of that GB at 700 feet. That is far deeper than a typical pad site would be. The flip side is, if we let it go now, do we lose opportunity in the future? They're both ways. And so, again, you need a balance of uses. Staff certainly doesn't look at this and say industrial drives more or less revenue than retail office, things like that. I think it's probably likely this could develop sooner as industrial than it likely will retail. But again, as we often talk about, Schertz has been here a long time, and we are going to be here a much, much longer time. We don't feel the need to develop everything in the next 10 years. It's okay that we take 20, 30, 40, 50 years to develop. So there's a long non-answer.
That was a longer answer than I expected.
Really?
But to sum it up, there can be positive economic impact on the residents, and I agreed with several people's comments that it makes sense location-wise on the north side of 35. It doesn't go from intersection to intersection. It's that center section. So, it's not a cookie cutter answer. We're trying to kind of nuance it and say, does this change work for this particular space? And with the topography, that's something else to consider. Is it going to be something that a smaller development, if we kept that GB designation, is that enough room to do what you need to do with the topography challenges there? So, but, for the concerns of the residents, I don't want to live in an industrial wasteland either, but I like the concept of a mix, and I think that there is positive economic opportunity when we are able to develop sections of land in this way, in a positive way. And yes, I think the flyover and they always look really great, and they're not going to look exactly like that, but it's a neat way to kind of conceptualize what it's going to look like. We still do have, I read in there, we still have the screening requirements, and there's going to be aesthetics that will be required that are going to be different than what they require south on 35 going into San Antonio. There's a lot of that's not aesthetically pleasing, and Schertz has some more stringent requirements than I think San Antonio does. So I think it looks like a good project, and I would be in favor.
Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I got a little bit of the rationale behind the general business along our I-35 and I-10. You're right, it's about the best value for the land. We know that rooftops don't pay for themselves, but you need a certain amount of it. That's not the right place to put it. I live a little bit down that little blue line, you see. So this is going to be front and center for me coming out of my subdivision. Mm-hmm. I saw what they did with the Ventura veterinary place. Yeah, I had, what in the world would fit in an area like that, and they did just a gorgeous job with that place there. I heard it said that, well, you're not going to get your steakhouse. Well, quite frankly, that's not the best place to put a steakhouse anyway. I'm still looking for a town hall or a town center, by the way, somewhere around Schwab Road between I-35, Mr. Economic Development Director. Okay, you're listening. Good. Yeah, somewhere between that and 482. That'd be a great place, or right across from Hugh Better's. So there are really good places. TxDOT really didn't do us any favors when they redirected the routing and took away the two-way frontage road concept. That area right there, if somebody wants to come in and make nice with it, hey, I'm all for it. I do worry about, though, the topography of the area, because it is upsloping. And, if you start putting a wall of warehouses there, yeah, it's going to be noticeable. If you check out the topography right across the road, you see it's a hill. And it overlooks I-35, which pretty much down in the valley. The entire area there tends to get a little moist when it rains, so you have your challenges cut out for you. But if you bring your warehouses and whatnot up on the hill, I'm just wondering about the aesthetics of it. I saw your flyover, and quite frankly, I really wasn't impressed, because I didn't see any trees in there at all. No shading whatsoever, and same thing even along the frontage road. I wasn't really impressed with the flyover. We do have tree ordinances that are in effect on this property, right?
We do, and they would have to plant trees. They left those out, but staff would catch it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I did see some of them, but the initial flyover was pretty generic, kind of boxy. That's cool. I'm sure our staff will dot the i's and cross the t's on that. And the other thing is turn-in lanes off the frontage road, I guess, or in this case, it's simply an access road to someplace else. Will TxDOT allow actual turn-in lanes, or are people going to be jamming out on their brakes and thinking, got to stop and turn in here?
No, just as a reminder, so when the applicant will be required to do a traffic impact analysis, and that's one thing we look at, and you do it at different stages and you refine it. The TIA then dictates what improvements need to be made. We work closely with TxDOT on that, and so again, often TxDOT will come in and say, yep, meets the warrants. Not only can they build decel lanes or turn lanes, they have to build decel lanes and turn lanes. So yeah, that's something we certainly look at.
Yeah, it is, as far as the square footage of spaces available here, and the idea to make it available to plumbers and irrigation people, a lot of different trades. That sounds to me like a good mix of opportunities for the city. We should probably attract a lot of good paying jobs. It seems, I trust you. It's the best value for this piece of property. Go for it.
Okay.
Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, I agree with some of the comments about the desire for some better entertainment and dining options. I had family in visiting over the holidays here, and I think we went out for dinner 4 times, and I hate to admit, but none of them were in Schertz. I mean, we've gone everywhere to San Antonio and Austin this weekend, and just for the different restaurants that we wanted to go to. And I would like to see more, but the reality of it is, Schertz has got that virtually the entire 35 corridor. And I was sitting up here playing around with my tablet a little bit, and by my estimates, from 3009 up to the city limits at New Braunfels, we've got about 5.5 miles on both sides of the highway, with that one exception down there by Santikos. And I just find it hard to believe that we would have that much commercial or retail development for 5.5 miles on both sides of a highway. I mean, at some point, it's going to come. And there's just so much real estate there for those type of things. Someone may come in with a Cracker Barrel or a good steakhouse, but the reality of it is we're not going to get 6 or 7 steakhouses, and we're not going to get, 20 restaurants or 30 restaurants up and down that 5-mile corridor. There's a place for everything. I think the intersections and the land on the side where we have the retail is the right spot for those commercial developments. I think holding back on the land around places like 1103 and to a degree like Schwab Road. I mean, Schwab Road's already got Cisco and the former GE building, which is now Amazon and all other stuff. We're getting a large truck stop on that corner that we've already approved. To me, this is the right development for the right location. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. They'll work through all the issues on the traffic flow and the off-ramps and all that kind of stuff. But again, to me, I think you're right. Protecting spots like Cibolo Valley Drive, protecting the areas around 1103, the 4 corners there, as that develops. I mean, because that's where you're going to see those commercial and retail developments. I mean, if you go back and look at the original site plan for where Evo is at right now, the Schertz side of it, originally planned by Four Seasons?
4-star.
4-star, back in the day. I mean, that whole corner there was nothing but commercial and retail and restaurants around the Evo corner there. So, I mean, we do have the locations for it, and with 5.5 miles in frontage on both sides of the highway, it's a matter of attracting the right kind of investors that want to come in and put in that retail shopping area, that restaurant, collection of things. But I think this is the right kind of development for this particular location. So I really don't have a problem with it.
Well, I have a few comments. Oh, go ahead. Well, I have a few questions for the developer. Why not move the warehouses towards the back? And, if you look at 3009, right where we have the business portion, we have the warehouses in the back. Why not move it just that bit so that we can have businesses on the frontage? What is your motivation behind taking the frontage?
The motivation behind using the frontage for the office appeal of the light industrial?
Well, for not having the businesses, we're moving the warehouses up to the frontage.
Well, what we're proposing to put on the frontage is a light industrial, so it will have businesses there. It may not be, a traditional retail use, but it will have businesses there. We will attract engineers, architects, that type of use type. It will attract businesses that will support the surrounding rooftops on the other side of 35. Your cabinet makers, your lighting stores, plumbing, AC, those types of businesses, that's what goes in that flex space. So typically the front half of those buildings is all office, and then the rear serves as, some small distribution type of area.
But on your planning and zoning briefing, you said 10%, as little as 10% could go on the office space. To me, that's not enough retail. That's not enough commercial to indicate that is appropriate proportion to put there. I would understand a 50%, but you said 10%, as little as 10%. That concerns me.
Well, there's going to be, so now one of those buildings isn't going to have just one tenant in it. I mean, that may happen, but typically you see multiple use types. So we've designed these to have multiple business suites, right? So you see the center entries and you see the side entries. So we'll have as many as 4 tenants in those buildings. So some of those suites may have 50% or 100% office. Some of them may only have 10%. It depends on what the business owner needs his space for. I mean, some of it may be showroom, and then the back is distribution. Others have, you know, a small office need, but you know, they still want that nice frontage, and they can put signage along I-35 because they'll have the face of the building to put, you know, nice signage for these buildings to actually drive business to them and use as advertising for their business.
Right. I want to add to that I know you're concerned about the percentage of the office versus that having the warehouse in the back of the office, but part of the control is the zoning itself. We can't have a distribution or warehouse use there. I mean, when we go for our C of O, they would look at the use, they would look at the building, and if staff said, no, you're not building a flex office space, you're actually building a warehouse, it wouldn't be allowed. Those distribution warehouses are already pushed to the back because they're already zoned M1. We're not changing the zoning in the back, it's already zoned for the distribution center that we're asking for. The portion at the front is a flex office space, and it would have to be, because it wouldn't be, you wouldn't get a C of O if it wasn't the right use. If it was all warehouse and it did look like a distribution center, we wouldn't get our approval. So, I mean, the zoning still controls to get that light industrial that we're talking about.
My other question is, why the 6 warehouses? Why not just do the 3 in the back portion and leave the front as GB?
Well, the landowner here was only willing to sell 118 acres as one contiguous parcel. It's not an option to divide this up into multiple parcels. So, and we are not, you know, we don't hold land and sell it on a, you know, we're not in the business of just holding land and selling to a potential retail user, right? This needs to be developed with a contiguous master plan, thought through development. So we're going to, like, from a drainage perspective, from a utility perspective, from a grading perspective, all those things go into consideration when we're planning out the development. And if we were to hold off parcels in the front for an unknown use type, like we don't have a user in mind, the economics don't work for our business plan. I mean, we have to put as much land as possible into production or into use to make the economics work.
Okay, you're talking about your economics doesn't work, but we forget, does it work for our economics? That's the important point here. I have one additional comment, but I'll go ahead and, okay. You know, our city is experiencing rapid growth, and we must continue the path without losing focus on the principles that made our city what it is. Growth is the vision of the future. And council, this evening, we are presented with a difficult and complex decision. But regardless of what tonight's outcome is, whether council approves, denies, or even accepts this new proposed zoning, it will determine how our city's future evolves. And thus, I must, with all due respect, ask this council to deny this ordinance. Bear in mind, the initial consensus from the city staff was to recommend denial of this application, but not before staff provided an alternative, a third option, a new zoning option. But why? Ask yourself, why? Why did staff take such measures to recommend a new zoning option? Clearly, approving a proposed ordinance would compromise future development along prime real estate on IH-35. The third option was a safety net. Our staff was providing us a safety net. Staff understood the potential deterrent that this straight approval, if it was granted, what it would do to our frontage. Our staff explored every option available to ensure the northbound side of IH-35 would be preserved by not allowing construction of warehouse structures, as well as cautiously preserving key locations on the southbound side of IH-35. Make no mistake, our city welcomes manufacturing and warehouses. If there are desirable, if and when desirable and valuable frontage real estate is not compromised, and that's what is being done here. You know, as you know, our city's in the cusp of unprecedented growth. We are growing. Our city is fortunate to be located between a well-traveled two cities. A lot of traffic is coming through there, over 100,000 cars per day. And I ask you, would it be suitable or appropriate for warehouses to occupy our city's highly desirable frontage real estate? The high value of this property does not merit a proposed change. As responsible elected city representatives, we should not jeopardize our general business zoning or compromise the value of future economic retail development. We should drive our own destiny. This is our future. We should not let the market control our future. I must bring to your attention also that even without this development, our city will remain resilient, healthy, viable, and attractive to other developers who share the same vision and understand what we want for our future. And that is why I am opposed to this zoning change. Council, the future of this city is in your hands. It is your decision to make. Councilman Hayward, you had some additional comments?
Yeah, my question was, even with this, the flyover was beautiful, but knowing that we don't have control over design elements anymore, you have it looking beautiful, but it could be a 10 building for all we know with brick front. I live down there, and I'm very conflicted with trying to put this there. With the warehouses, I have no problem them being where they are supposed to be in the back, the way Cisco sits, the way Amazon sits. I just have a hard time with what's happening up front. I'm not there, and I know that there's probably no houses going to be developed over there, but I know we had GB for a reason, and I concur with the mayor. If staff was originally going to say no, there was a reason. And if they were saying no originally, I'm almost at the point where I can't vote for it because you decided, because you never give us a third option. You always go this or that. There's no in-between unless we decide we want to do an in-between. And I don't think we came up with the in-between. You gave us the in-between. And knowing that some of the residents and what they're looking for, and I heard from some who did not come tonight, but they were not happy with the idea of warehouses being up front on the frontage road. They were fine with them in the back, but not on the frontage road. And I know you said those are office spaces and all that kind of stuff, but you're developing, you can't guarantee what's coming in, what businesses want to come in. And then what does it look like later? Or does it stay empty after it's built? Because the way the economy is going. And those are some of my concerns with even saying build them and then we hope people will come. I mean, we have a building on I-35 now. It was a restaurant, a chicken restaurant. It's been sitting vacant. They went out of business. It's still sitting vacant because, one, maybe it's people want too much, or I don't know what it is. But the economy is not, in Texas, yes, typically our economy is growing strong and it's always booming. When we're booming, everybody else is suffering. When we're suffering, everybody else is booming. But I'm just having that struggle with upfront and what that looks like, because I know we have no more control. The state took that control from us on what design elements go in. And your video can look one way, and then when it gets built, it's altogether different. And that's not something I'm willing to chance.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Dalla.
So I'll go back to my comments that, you know, looking at the placement of this proposed project, you know, being mid-block, the amendment of our land use plan for highway commercial, highway commercial land use designation. I think it's appropriate, you know, for a development that's going to be in between the blocks. It has limited access due to existing driveways as well as the on and off ramps that are there. And I think this type of development is going to be appropriate for this sort of placement. And certainly I have a lot of respect for the mayor's views and opinions on that, but in this case, I think I disagree with the mayor. I think this project is appropriate for where they're looking to place it. And with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve Ordinance 21S37.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Dallas, was second by Councilmember Scagliola. Am I correct? Okay. Council, any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Whitaker.
Mr. James, can you just clarify? So this first ordinance that we're talking about, that's to change the comprehensive land use plan.
That's correct.
But only for this section.
Only for this section, the 42
So,
acres.
okay, so it's not going, it could set a precedence, but it does not change.
So I think certainly here would be what I would say from a staff perspective. I think what we've heard council say is it changes it for this area. Council has certainly offered reasons why this is problematic. And so, again, typical Brian Long answer, I hate to give you this. I think there have been enough issues raised on both sides of this that I don't think council's necessarily settled this matter forever, up and down 35, up and down I-10. So what staff would suggest is that this is one we spend a bit more time with, really delve into these issues and say, while we may have done it here, let's take a deeper, bigger look, bigger implications to evaluate it, and we may not choose to do this again down the road, and we may incorporate that into our plan and say, yeah, we did it here for some particular reasons, but let's reiterate our vision, and it may be something different. That's what staff would suggest. So no, from our perspective, there's a lot of discussion both ways. What staff tries to find, and I think what our council typically tries to find, because we've got a lot of people looking out for the best interest of the community, is if we have one that comes in that we weren't quite all in agreement, let's maybe spend a bit more time talking about it before we have the next one coming in and see if we can find a bit more win-win. And so that, I think, is what staff would take away is, don't assume that this is going up and down everywhere. This is one we need to come back and revisit, and we need to tell other folks, you may need to pause while we settle some of these issues and see if we can find a better win-win from the next properties. And again, we've got a long way to go, Schertz, big impact. That's what staff would say.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that, you know, we're not changing the landscape of the land use plan or anything. We're using a scalpel and not a sledgehammer. I look at this as, we've looked at this one particular area, and I appreciate that staff is going to say, okay, look, let's make sure that we don't all of a sudden just change, that general business designation all up and down the highway. But I agree with Councilman Dalla. I think it makes sense for this area, for the project. I'm still in favor of it.
Okay. Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I think I complimented Schertz on being a learning organization last council meeting. I think this is a case where we'll learn one way or another.
Now, the bottom line is, though, P&Z approved this ordinance the way it was presented to us tonight, right?
They did. Staff recommended denial at P&Z based on what was asked, but I think the mayor clearly articulated. We basically said, whoa, if you're going to do this, though, we wouldn't go this way, do this. It protects a little more.
And it was a unanimous vote.
Yes, sir.
So they did approve it at the P&Z, and the staff is online with what's presented to us tonight.
Yes, sir.
In this ordinance.
Based on P&Z's recommendation, we're comfortable with the fallback. Certainly valid reasons not to. Is that
Understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Davis.
We're in the process of relooking at the comprehensive land use plan. How far out do you think we are from having an event where we can get some public input?
I think we're probably January, February. Good news is we had what I thought was a very good meeting of the subcommittee. And as I've said, we really need to settle this fundamental question on single-family residential form. I think we came a long way to that today. That was something that we felt like council and P&Z need to set that vision. That lets us go forward. So my hope is we're putting out the RFQ for this in early October, coming back with a contract a month or so later, and then kicking the thing off in short order. And I think this is one of the areas we need to talk about vision and focus for the city overall.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the current zoning along that, like I said, it's 5.5 miles, and we've got both sides of the highway. To me, just general business, commercial campus, I think we slather too much of a generic label across a large swath of land that is kind of unrealistic, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we've got to do this scalpel approach a lot. I agree with Councilman Scagliola. It doesn't happen a lot, but he's down there smiling now. I think we need to lock in things like the North Town Center and how we're going to zone this out, and where we're going to hold hard and fast to the commercial development. And do it in a way that is going to be beneficial and entice the right kind of commercial developments in there. Like I said, to me, it's around 1103, the 4 quadrants there. It's the 4 quadrants around Cibolo Valley Drive, and maybe another one further up, whether that's Schwab or Friesenhagen, I don't know. The way the road's laid out, I mean, we have areas that are projected, don't even exist for our transportation plan up there, so I think we have some flexibility. To me, those are the questions that we need to have coming up with this comp plan update. But again, to sit there and hit the brakes hard and say, well, gee, we're just not going to do anything now because here's what the thought or the plan was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, I don't think that's as realistic either. For the community going forward. Again, this is development, this is growth in the community, and with the things that we have on that side of the road and the location they're doing, I just don't think it's that problematic. So.
Okay, Councilmember Scott.
I'm very glad you said that. That was actually at the top of my list, but then I got all emotional about like Schertz. But anyway, fair warning, sometimes what you buy isn't what you get. And we're making a decision. This has plagued me and haunted me before. On a relatively small piece of real estate or on a presentation you can hold in your hand that represents many, many acres. And I'm just saying, sometimes what you buy isn't what you get. I'm letting y'all know. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I do remember many, many moons ago when the city was looking at, some of that area up on the north side was annexed, and there were a lot of questions about what the future was going to be, and they did take the broad brush M1, the broad brush GB, and just laid it all out there, knowing full well that they would have to make changes in the future. Okay, but they just made the very generic broad brush zoning to hold things in place so that we wouldn't get residential developers buying inexpensive land up there and trying to put a Magnolia Springs or whatever in. Okay, that's not what we wanted either. So those are a little bit of the background there that I'm familiar with. maybe not all the details, but, and again, as everybody said, the location is perfect. I have more trust in them that if they're going to give us a presentation that looks like that it's going to look like that, okay? I trust that in today's business world, they're not going to come in and put some, half-baked looking architecture out there, and, the fact that they are giving us Class A office retail space up front, that's something we don't have, plain and simple, okay? We're not going to get retail commercial, okay? We're not going to get clothes stores and shoe stores and stuff like that. Nobody's going to stop there for that. But they are going to put office space in there. They're going to put small businesses like air conditioning companies, like a plumbing company, like a window company, something like that. And they need a little warehouse space with it, okay? We don't have that anywhere else, okay? Not in Schertz right now. We have big warehouses. Yeah, we've got Amazon space, okay, things like that, but we don't have that 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 square foot, small business space that, and they need it, and they know that they would certainly rather have a Class A space than something off of Pat Booker Road too. And I'm not demeaning Pat Booker, but there's a lot of old businesses out there that are occupied by folks that would certainly like to be in Class A space. So I'm all for it, guys. I trust you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve ordinance number 21S37 made by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Dalla and second by Councilmember Scagliola. Council, any other comments? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye. Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes, 2 objections, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to ordinance number 21S36, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 42 acres of land to General Business District 2, GB2, located 2,500 feet east of the intersection of Hubertus Road and Interstate Highway 35, also known as Comal County Property Identification Numbers 75290 and 75369, Comal County, Texas. First reading. Council, is the presentation necessary?
I think, if I may, Mayor,
Okay.
I think this may help. So again, just to reiterate what the applicant is doing, they want to move the M1 zoning district down closer and then zone across the front as GB2. Based on the discussion we just heard, staff takes away a lot of the things that were very critical to council, and even those that voted approval of it, I think, seem to acknowledge the look, the feel of the project, the elements that were critical. And so while we have pretty good development regulations with it going forward, I think the reality is the applicant came forward and said, this is our vision for the property. Let me give you a flyover, let me give you the site layout attached to it. Staff would recommend, rather than go straight zoning, we would recommend that council actually zone to a planned development district with a base zone of GB2 and ML as they've requested. What we'd like to do, and we can work this out between now and the next meeting, we think, to lock in the layout, maybe even those elevations to some degree, make sure we don't have those warehouse doors facing the freeway. We can sort of tighten our standards up based upon what we understand that I think those who voted for it was a factor, and then those that voted against it have concern about. So again, doesn't mean everybody's going to be happy with it, but I think what we can do is, again, one of the things I'm most proud about Schertz is we tend to come together when we don't agree and say, how do we find a way to make it better, a win-win? And so I think that's what we would suggest is council recommend approval of the rezoning, but to a planned development district with base zoning of GB2 and M1, and that staff and the applicant rework the ordinance with those standards of the things that were discussed so it can be approved on second reading next week. And I think the applicant hopefully doesn't hate that too much.
I mean, I just want to understand the ramifications.
So what we're talking about is, and I often sort of say this, and I'm going to say it bluntly, that's how I tend to be, but try to be nice, is those things that y'all have described about your development, we're not going to have bay doors facing the freeway on those front buildings. They're going to be in the back. We're going to lock that in, and we can lock that in with PDB. The elevations you've given, that's generally going to be it. We'll build in some flexibility. It's not quite like this. It's quite like, but we sort of get the concept. We have the ability to lock that in. We think we can do that fairly easily, and we again achieve a win-win. And so it's the kind of things that you've talked about, that we've heard them talk about. We think we can lock in fairly short order.
Okay. Do we need to modify this ordinance, or that's implied on this?
Well, we do need to modify the ordinance. We've got an error in the ordinance to begin with. So if council's good with that, it'd be a recommendation to approve a rezone to a PDD M1 GB2. Staff work up that ordinance with the applicant, come back with that next week for second reading.
That's a lot of wording. Did you all get it? Okay.
You can just go as Brian said if you want.
Okay. Any comments from council before? Okay. Councilmember Dalla, Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, you'd like to make the motion?
It's a public hearing. So
Oh, that's right. It is a public hearing. I am so sorry. This is an open public hearing. Anyone here want to address the council regarding this subject?
Thank you. I do want to add something. Again, James McKnight, 112 East Pecan. I stated it a little bit earlier when I was answering your question, but the zoning does still lock you into uses. I mean, what I have it here, I didn't put it on one of my slides, but I went through and looked at the difference between what GB allows and what GB2 allows. There was a total of 20 uses that were now allowed that weren't before, and only 11 that were really viable. Some of them was like an airport helipad. Okay, so I scratched that out. That's not really something that we're interested in here. So we're only talking about 11 uses. Only one of them is that office flex. The other ones were just slightly larger sort of retail items. So I just want to point out again, we're only looking at this front portion, and the GB to GB2 is actually not that big of a leap. We're only adding 11 more, and it's really just to get the one. I mean, if there was a way for us to zone it to just add that one use, we would have done it. But as it is, the GB2 isn't as big a move as you think it is. And you know, the worry about having warehouses on the front, you can't. Because if you tried to go for a warehouse is not allowed in GB2. So you wouldn't be able to get that use. The uses that are allowed are basically business uses with that office flex. So I just want to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, any other comments from the public? Going once, going twice? Public hearing is closed. All right, council, any comments? Mayor Pro Tem Dalla?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 21-S-36 with the modification that the rezoning to be a PDD, which includes GB2 and M1, and staff and the applicant will work out the details for our next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Dalla to approve ordinance 21-S-36 with some modifications, and second by Councilmember Brown. Council, any other comments?
Yeah, Mayor, just like to say, I totally agree with Councilmember Brown's assessment. You know, back in the day, we did kind of take a broad brush and you know, paint the area out there based on the zoning that we had available at the time, not really understanding what future growth would bring us. Well, now we have an idea, and I think. Flexibility, a little bit of flexibility is called for in situations like this. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Nay.
Aye.
We have five ayes, one objection, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. James.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 13. This is also a public hearing. Ordinance number 21-S-32. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 1 acre of land to Main Street Mixed-Use New Development, MSMU-ND, located at the hard corner of Main Street and Schertz Parkway, also known as Guadalupe County Property Identification Number 16630, Guadalupe County, Texas. First reading. Mr. James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated with the caption, the proposal is to rezone the subject property, and you can see it on the graphic, which is that hard corner of Schertz Parkway and Main Street, the southwest corner, to our Main Street mixed-use new development district. One of the things that we've talked a lot about with trying to revitalize our Main Street is a lot of those structures built on Main Street were built as single-family residential homes, and yet there's commercial zoning, there are businesses. The idea is that we need to have a unified look. We need to build on our history, but we also need to respond to changing times going forward. And so while some of those buildings are very good for putting in businesses, others not so much. This hard corner is one of those. It's highly visible. It's at the intersection. A few meetings ago, we created the Main Street mixed-use new development, which is the same as the Main Street mixed-use, but it has some modified setbacks to better allow new development to come in because we're dealing with smaller lots, things like that. So this is in keeping, we feel, with the vision for Main Street, and really helps us going forward. It has been, not in my memory, has a new building on Main Street been built, and that's for a variety of reasons and challenges, floodplain one. We think this zoning helps move that forward, and this is the area it was intended for, so staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. James. Again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address this council?
Michelle Terletsky, 705 Maryland Drive, Schertz. I just have a comment that whoever builds on that corner, could it not be a neon-type paint job? Be more of a subtle, natural, nice-looking paint job? So that when I stop at that stop sign, I just don't immediately go all the way through because I'm looking at that neon orange, green, purple, whatever it is. Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to address the council? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Whitaker.
2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand the design is as pictured on the real estate board, correct?
So let me be clear with this. And again,
you get 10 seconds.
Okay.
Time's up.
You stunned me. I was stunned.
You could say yes or no if the answer is no.
We have all seen
General.
what the applicant is proposing.
Yes.
This zoning does not lock
Correct.
in the elevations. They could come in with something very different if they wanted. Again, what they have come in for, though, is consistent with that graphic that they have.
Okay, and with that, so yeah, I understand what the zoning changes.
Yes,
do you know what the square footage is proposed on that building?
I cannot remember.
Okay, because the reason I ask that is because changing to the Main Street mixed use changes the requirements for the parking, but not by much, I think. But I was also curious as far as site plan, is using the back of those lots for the parking, do you know? Or 'cause there is substantial parking going to be required depending on the square footage of the building.
So again, long answer again. Main Street mixed use, that just needs 2 parking spaces on property. Main Street mixed use new development, because it could be a bigger building, it's a staggered.
Right.
I think he's got about 10, 12, something like that in the back is what's
Okay.
proposed.
That's kind of, I mean, that was, I just wanted to clarify and make sure that that was the plan. That is all.
Councilmember Davis.
As I understand it, we know the city now has limited options with regards to construction options on facilities, correct?
We have limited options with regard to materials allowed by the building code. We have not regulated color in the past. It has not been enough of an issue for us to get into the business of regulating color. And certainly I will likely reach out to the property owner and say, you're not getting a lot of fans with the green.
If I recall correctly in the past, one of the things to like regulate colors and stuff like that would be the creation of a historic district, which in itself is problematic. I do agree with some of the other earlier comments. I'm not a big fan of fluorescent orange or neon green or some of these other colors that tend to pop up from time to time. Alls I can offer from my perspective is again, the city has limited options to deal with some of those issues. I would say that the applicant that's trying to do this property, if you look at the other properties that are around that border this, where we've got the coffee shop and stuff like that, that used to be a big orange building originally, and when the new owner took it over, he installed a lot of brick facing to tone that area down, and we lost all of the bright orange on that corner and got, I think, what is a very neutral, pleasant-looking corner there. I just don't envision that we're going to get a lime green or orange brand new building there. I think it's going to be very much in line with a traditional Main Street feature.
I will say this property owner reached out to me asking that same question. Can't we regulate color? Have you seen that building? So I don't think he's a fan of it either.
Council, any other comments?
Mayor, just have a couple of questions. And this by necessity goes through the Main Street Committee, right? For evaluating all these properties and changes and proposals?
Yep. We look at that.
And they voted unanimously to approve it?
So I may have misunderstood your question. This goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this rezoning. We discussed this Main Street mixed-use new development district with the Main Street Committee. They were generally keeping that, hey, we need to make some modifications to allow new development. But no, the zoning cases don't run through them, just to be clear. But certainly we have those members on council, and they could chime in, I'm sure.
No, it's interesting because I just wonder what the direction is. What's the intent? What is it we're trying to turn Main Street into? And I don't have a real warm fuzzy as to the direction sometimes. I don't sit on that committee, so I don't really know. And I think whenever you're talking something like this with a zoning change, you also should look forward and decide upon, well, what is it you're trying to do? You know, a lot of times we talk about doing a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. There's other types of assessments you can do. One's called a SWEET, strengths, weaknesses, expectations. Okay? Expectations. What do you expect will happen further down the road? And I'm hoping we can actually integrate some of that that process moving forward as we continue to develop Main Street. My mama used to say, be careful what you ask for, because sometimes when you want something in the worst possible way, that's where you're going to get it. And I don't want to go down that road. I really don't. I've been usually taking a hands-off approach to Main Street because I don't sit on the committee, and you don't need a whole bunch of bosses involved. So I intentionally have avoided the discussion, but I'm sure enough hoping somebody is running with the ball on it. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Davis.
Great input. And as, I guess, the chairman of the Main Street Subcommittee, I guess I might as well jump in and give some insight. The Main Street Subcommittee has stuck faithfully to the sector plan that was developed and published by the city that talked about the north sector, center sector, and the south sector, and the sections on it that deal with Main Street as making it a gathering place for the community, which involved making physical improvements on things like mobility, sidewalks, lighting, and the ambiance of Main Street, which deals with benches and art placements and lighting. Other than that, we do not get involved into the zoning aspects. That's got to go through planning and zoning. And while I think everybody on the Main Street Committee would love to have quaint little restaurants and shops lining Main Street. Unfortunately, we don't have the tools available from the committee's level to provide incentives for having someone start up business A versus business B. So when a restaurant comes down there, nobody on the Main Street Committee, and at no point do those proposals for a restaurant come down there, come to the Main Street Subcommittee to say, oh, we're going to open up this type of restaurant, a burger place. We're not involved in that process. We have talked at the committee level about bringing to City Council the feasibility of what other small business incentives or incubators we could consider as a council, as a municipality, that would encourage the startups or those types of businesses that the residents would like to see. For example, if you look at our neighboring communities, and they've got 2 or 3 other variety restaurants starting up, mom and pop restaurants, bakeries. Again, we do not do that on the Main Street Subcommittee. We are only looking at the infrastructure and those physical improvements. And we passed tonight in the consent agenda 21R98, which is the work with Kimley Horn, that they are going to come back now, working with the staff, working with the Main Street Committee, and ultimately coming back to the council, the vision, the layout, the physical improvements for the street resurfacing, the installation of lights, the stub outs and how we handle those, and the archways and the marquee effects that would give the physical improvement or the physical appearance to Main Street. But again, at the end of the day, the Main Street Committee does not get involved in, and though we have asked with the Main Street Grant Program, we have asked the city staff to be a little bit more proactive, that when someone is coming in with a grant request that comes to the full council, getting a little bit more finer detail on those grant submissions to make sure that someone is not doing something that is not the desired intent of the council, the staff, the subcommittee, or the residents. But then again, we're talking about private property down there. So if somebody has a private piece of property and they choose to put something on their property, whether it be an awning or painting or a sign out front, that goes through a different process to the city. In some cases, no process. I mean, the city does not review when somebody wants to paint their house.
That's correct.
So if somebody on Main Street chooses to paint their private structure a color that some other person does not like, it's very little controlled on that, and it certainly does not come through the Main Street Subcommittee.
Okay. Councilmember Whitaker.
What I think, to kind of follow up with that, the zoning change that we're talking about in this one is going from general business to Main Street mixed-use new development. My understanding is that the Main Street mixed-use new development is actually more restrictive than the general business and has more of the flavor of what we're going.
Yeah, from a use standpoint,
right,
it's more restrictive. Again, we crafted the Main Street mixed-use district and the Main Street mixed-use new development district with those uses that, via the sector plan, we would like to see on Main Street. Now, again, I'll go back. Talked a lot about restaurants. Folks may not want a fried chicken restaurant on Main Street. They may want something different. We don't regulate that. So yeah, in terms of the uses, it's more limited, more in keeping with Main Street. It really allows them to redevelop on this property. Again, we've talked a lot about this. Our normal districts and development standards are intended for greenfield new development, not just on Main Street, but other parts of the city where the lots are fairly small or you're redeveloping. Our ordinances pose a challenge. This is where we decide to tackle to make a change to better allow that.
Okay, the reason I wanted to point out that is that the Main Street mixed use and mixed use new development is where we had the whole discussion about adding a pet shop. And that's when we looked at all of those uses that the goal was to create kind of an atmosphere, and what Councilman Davis was talking about as far as a destination, and I think rezoning to the Main Street mixed use or mixed use new development is going to keep in line with that. The more GB we have, general business we have on Main Street, the less it's going to feel like what we're trying to get to with Main Street. So if we can get to the Main Street mixed use zoning, I actually think that's a positive in the direction that we want to go. But I thought it was a good highlight that Main Street Committee does not have, you know, oversight in the types of businesses other than that they have to meet the zoning, and the Main Street mixed use new development zoning would be more restrictive. It's not going to be a car lot or a garage or anything. It's office space or bookstore or things like that. So
that's true.
Okay, Councilmember Hayward.
So as much as many of us probably do not like that color, it could be worse. We could have the pink house from Austin. So their neighbors kept complaining about different things that were pink, so then they decided to paint the whole house pink. So because cities don't dictate colors, only the HOAs typically can dictate what color you can paint your house. It's unfortunate. I don't like the color of that either, but it, you know, I just think about, I don't know how we go about fixing it because it's a private property and they have that option. We don't like the color, we don't control it, and the city in our UDC doesn't have any jurisdiction on that. But it's over the audience because I showed it to council. They painted the whole house pink with the roof because their neighbors complained. So they could complain and we'd have a whole lime green kind of establishment. And, you know, but it's one where I think when we're looking at, as Councilwoman Whitaker said, the new development is a little bit more restricted. Yeah. And we can control that a little bit better. And we know that because of the way Main Street is, there's not going to probably be a whole lot of new development on the street. Our just concern is parking, I think, which is always my concern.
Okay, any other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Whitaker, second by Councilmember Davis to approve ordinance number 21-32. Any other comments? If none, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objections, motion passes. We'll move on to item number 14, ordinance number 21-33. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 0.4 acres of land to Main Street Mixed Use New Development District, MSMU-ND, located 500 feet east of the intersection of Main Street and Randolph Avenue, 610 Main Street, also known as Guadalupe County, property identification number 168552, Guadalupe County, Texas. First reading. Mr. James, floor is yours.
This is pretty much the exact same zoning case that you just approved. It's just further down. The irony is not lost on staff that we had identified the subject property in lime green, and this is just 2 lots down from the aforementioned lime green building. You'll notice those will change for next week in terms of the color scheme we use. But no, essentially, this rezones property from GB, which allows things like some of the auto-related uses, to Main Street mixed use, which is more in keeping with where we're headed.
Well, not yet. This is a public hearing. Yes. Again, this item on the agenda is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the council?
Hi, Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive, Schertz, Texas. I agree with Mr. Davis to a certain degree. We've gone through several ordinances that the city has passed. One that the fire department came up with that said how you had to have your shed in your backyard. Then there was a young man that came up here and we made him jump through all kinds of hoops to make sure his new building out on 1103 had all the right number of trees. I had all the kind of stuff like that. I don't understand why we can't pass some kind of ordinance that in the historic district you have some kind of limitations on what you can do. Now, this is a vacant lot. I don't have a problem with something being built there. But if you pass by there in the last day or two, there's a board up. Whoever's building on this, maybe it's going to be an old-time saloon to be the historic site thing, because they've already applied for their liquor application. It's up there that it says it's been applied for. They're waiting for it to come through on this vacant lot. So that leaves at least 3 within 4 or 5 blocks of, I guess, what we're looking to make Main Street in Schertz look like. Walk from one bar to the next. It needs to be developed. I don't argue that. I don't think it needs to be a wild color, neon color. I think there needs to be a recommendation to you guys is that you get some kind of ordinance or you get something working of how your businesses should be set up in this, rather than letting them paint it whatever color they want. If it's going to be the historical district of Schertz to make Main Street look good, I would think you should do something like that. But evidently, we're not sure what we want Main Street to look like.
Brenda, ditto. Okay, since I took that flack from y'all on how you can't control anybody painting their business, I know that, I understand that. But 2-3 years ago, you spent high dollar on a contractor to tell you how Main Street is going to look, and we're going to have these quaint little shops and things like that. So far, we're going to have 4 bars, okay? And then we have an arrangement from pinks to greens to yellow, whatever. All I'm saying is the new ones that are coming in, there should be some way, since you're handing over money to them from your little funds that you're getting, there should be some stipulation that it should be neutral colors or something. The trouble is, y'all go home at night, you're tired, you work, you do whatever. You don't live in my area. You don't go down the street that I go down. I doubt if some of you even been down Main Street in the last 4 weeks or so. And you sure don't go down at 9 and 10 o'clock at night to see what's going on. But I've had one council person show up when it was raining and it was flooding over the curbs, came out in the rain with an umbrella and galoshes to check on the drainage on Main Street and my street. So all I'm saying is, like I told you a couple months ago, just because you were elected council doesn't mean you don't represent everybody in Schertz. You don't just represent the area in which you live. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to? Yes, please come on up.
I'm not a resident, but I do own that lot. Can I speak?
Yes, yes, please. Name and address, please. Yes.
Denise Anda Baker, 610 Main Street.
That's fine.
I do.
If you can please address talking to the mic so we all can hear you, please.
This is not going to be a bar. This will be closed at 8 p.m. every night. We want to draw families in. It's going to be a food truck park. I got the liquor license to have signature drinks, but also coffee, kids' signature drinks, and so the draw is really for families. I've spoke with the neighbors. They're good with it. And we want to bring good, not just good, but great food truck food to the area. You know, it's Food trucks are a big thing right now. COVID, you know, it's open areas. It's going to be beautiful. And that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Going once? Going twice? Public hearing is closed. All right. Councilman Hayward, do you have a comment? No? Was it? I thought it was on this one. Maybe it was the last one. Oh, okay. Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, just based on the commentary, again, as a clarification, Main Street in Schertz is not designated as a historic area by the city of Schertz. Pardon? We call it historic Schertz, but it's not designated as a historic area. And I didn't pick the wording of the banners, but anyway, it's not a designated historical preservation area. The historical committee does have a program where they identify certain structures that they believe are part of the history of Schertz. But the city council has not designated Main Street as a historic preservation area where we would dictate how a building is renovated or maintained or the colors used on it or anything along those lines. I believe there was a discussion about that, and it was decided at that point that the city was not going to go down that path. But with regards to the other comments, again, as far as the Main Street grant programs that we have, and as well as the historic grants, the historic grants that are put out there, staff was instructed to look at what is being proposed and make recommendations back to the council as the council approves those options. And that includes the Main Street mixed-use grants specifically. And I remember where there was, I don't know if it's been acted upon yet, but there was one facility down on Main Street that put in a request for awnings on their facility. And that particular request, when it came into council, had no specifications on the size, type of material, colors, or things like that. And the Main Street Committee specifically asked the staff going forward that any grant requests for Main Street that deal with the exterior of the building, landscaping, awnings, color, they were instructed to please provide as much detail as possible on what the applicant was actually proposing to present to the full council for consideration, and not just, well, the individual or the applicant would like X number of dollars to paint their building, that council would not act on those types of requests without extensive detail on design elements for Main Street.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Okay, I'll go. So I was writing my notes. I wanted to mention on the historic designation, having lived in a historically designated property on Randolph Air Force Base, I can tell you that designating a property or a group of properties as historic sounds like a great thing, and I was very excited to live on base years ago, and when I had the opportunity to live on base, while it's beautiful from the outside, to live in one of the structures was not pleasant, and it restricts you as far as what you can do as a homeowner or a property owner. So, I would love to see it, like the quintessential historic district as well, but designating it as such has extreme limitations and can be negative. On the other side of it, as far as developing Main Street, I know that there are people that are very interested in developing it as a destination, a family-friendly place to be with more opportunities out there. It's definitely a challenge with the current owners of the properties down there, and there's not a lot of movement happening. So if there's going to be a shift to, what the vision is. It's going to be a slow movement, but I just wanted to make the comment that there are other people out there that are very interested in developing the Main Street area into something that we've discussed up here, what the Main Street Committee has discussed. It's not an easy project. I think, you know, we were all kind of surprised when Rocket Feed closed all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, a new color and there's a new owner. So we are not privy to, you know, the private goings on of people's personal property and when it's sold and everything. So the best thing that we can do right now is, with that designation of Main Street mixed use, restricting the uses of those properties that are in that zoning to stay with the, you know, within the lines of what the goal is, switch out from general business over to the Main Street mixed use to limit some of those other properties as we have the opportunity to do so, and just asking the residents to be patient. If you know of residents downtown, you know, owners that have a vision for that, you know, talk to us. Maybe we can match them up with people that are, you know, interested in moving in that direction, but it's going to be a slow process, and I do believe that the council up here has that vision and they desire for Main Street to be what we've talked about. It's just going to be a little bit slower of a process.
Councilmember Scott.
Thank you. I do drive on Main Street every day, and I'm fully aware of some of the challenges of it. The theme seems to be eclectic. It's like you have the tire shop, the washateria, but I'm kind of sentimental, and other things also. I'm kind of sentimental because I've lived here so long, and those businesses, some of them they're quite old by now, and some other teachers that I work with live in Schertz too, and their daughter, one of the teachers, her daughter lives in Old Schertz, and they love the washateria. And so I guess it's different strokes in a way. When you were talking, Councilman Whitaker, in my mind I was getting a picture of the gentrification of Main Street. If y'all have ever gone to the Pearl Brewery or East Austin, from what I understand, I haven't been there in a while, but you can get some areas that have been economically challenged, for lack of a better word, kind of run down. But gentrification, suddenly it's a whole new ball game. That is not without its problems too, but maybe that's what we're striving toward, and I don't know that that can be dictated. You know, I'm pretty sure it can't. My question is, I'm very happy that we're getting a theme, and we're getting, I was happy to see the sidewalks a couple years ago coming online, and you know, that we're getting it, for lack of a better word, dolled up as best we can. I think it's going to be very charming and pretty. I love Schertz. It's awesome. I hate showing my ignorance, but 10 or 20 years ago, I was talking to the lady on Pat Booker, and she couldn't get a liquor license because it was within 200 feet of a church. I don't know if that changed. I don't know what the deal is. Are there any laws or city ordinances that you can have like 3 liquor stores within, you know, a couple miles of a high school? Because, I mean, having a bunch of liquor stores, that's not a good look or feel for our community. I think that could be problematic, and I do think that's legitimate. And I'm not against, I don't drink, but, you know, once a year. I'm not against it. My son's a connoisseur of whatever old scotch. He has all this old scotch. It's so old, I don't know why he didn't throw it away. But you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So what do you think?
So I don't know. I'll have to turn to the city secretary and the city attorney to help me out on this one in terms of, you know, I don't believe Schertz has particular regulations. I believe it falls to the state regulations.
That is correct.
Mayor Pro Tem Dalla.
So years ago, when all this started, you know, voters approved to spend $1 million to improve Main Street, and we've since added some to that from various sources. And I remember having a conversation with former city manager John Kessel about this, because at that time I was really adamantly opposed to the whole idea of spending that kind of money down there. But after talking with him about it, you know, one of the things that he pointed out is that, you know, it's an older area that was struggling, and that, you know, we faced a choice as a community to either make an investment and show some commitment to it and hopefully trigger some additional investment, or just to ignore it and let it continue to decay and become another host of problems that we probably couldn't even imagine. Here we are 10 years later. We're seeing more economic activity on Main Street than we've seen in the entire history of the city. I'm not a big fan of the bars and some of the things that have gone on around the bars, and that might be something that would have to be addressed at some point, but you know, the previous zoning case is going to be offices. We've got a coffee shop. The coffee shop owner is about to open a little ice cream shop. There's a realtor office there. There's a mortgage broker. There's some counselors down there. We've got a restaurant down there. Not all of it's perfect, but we have a lot of private property owners that are making substantial financial investments to try to improve that and to be able to provide for themselves and their families. And all that has happened because the city made the commitment to put some money into Main Street. I'm not 100% behind all the things that have come in and what's going on, but overall, this has gone in a quite surprising direction for me on what I thought was going to happen 10 years ago. And I'm glad that we did it, and I think we need to focus on the long-term goal of generating the economic activity and to continue to support what's going on down there.
Thank you. Okay, Council, any other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21S33?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilmember Whitaker, second by Councilmember Scott. Council, any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objections. Motion passes. We'll move on to our next public hearing, ordinance number 21T38. An ordinance adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2021 and ending September 30th, 2022, in accordance with the charter of the City of Schertz, Texas, providing for the filing of the budget, providing that this ordinance should be cumulative of all ordinances, providing a servability clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a recap, so I will go rather quickly. I'll touch on the budget highlights, and the next item will go over the tax rates. So the highlights for this fiscal year include financial software replacement, new personnel, contracted building facilities cleaning, new fleet programs, the animal care HVAC system, additional spam funding, and increasing the minimum wage. So the financial software replacement's about $500,000. Current software is old, about 20 years, and about time to get replaced. The new personnel proposed, there's 3 in the general fund, a patrol officer, an evidence technician, and a plumber. The enterprise fund EMS has 2 paramedics, plus the Randolph contract that was approved earlier tonight. Water and sewer has a SCADA technician. On the contracted facilities cleaning, we're going to add the public safety as well as park restrooms to the existing contracts. Fleet program will have a heavy-duty tire machine that we can change large tires in-house, as well as a GPS tagging for vehicles to help us identify some efficiencies in operating vehicles. The animal care HVAC total project cost may be about $700,000, including some legal fees. The road program going forward, we currently have $200,000 in the general fund. We plan to add $400,000 going forward in 2022-23, the year after. Currently, those funds planned for this year may go towards the HVAC system in the animal services. Also increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour and finish class and comp. And the budget, that grand total of both those programs is $329,000 along all funds. You'll see that in the change memo that was attached, how that was broken out by department and by fund. So the general fund proposed budget is $39.5 million. It's about a 2% increase, 2.7% increase, higher than last general fund budget. Non-personnel budgets will decrease, but personnel budgets will increase with the minimum wage, the completion of class and comp, and our normal merit programs in ECI. And I'll pause here for the public hearing portion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walters. Once again, this is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance like to address the council? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Council, floor is open for discussion. Any comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21T38?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Davis, second by Councilmember Hayward. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, we have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. We'll move on to item number 16, ordinance number 21T38, an ordinance by the city, an ordinance approving the appraisal roll, setting the tax rate, levying and accessing general and specific ad valorem taxes for the use and support of municipal government of the city of Schertz, Texas. Apportionary the levies and specific purposes, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. Mr. Walters, floor is yours.
All right, as a recap on the property taxes, this is a chart showing the breakdown of property taxes you get on your bill. The city portion is the one color at the bottom, the largest portion going to the school district. So the 2020 taxable value is $3.9 billion. In 2021, those adjusted taxable values are just over $4 billion. So the state has us calculate a few tax rates, no new revenue, and a voter approval rate. Those rates were 0.5146 for the no new revenue, voter approval is 5.242, and the current proposed is 0.5121. There is a little bit difference between the current and the proposed, with a tax rate swap, taking some tax rate from the INS, which pays the city debt, and moving it to the general fund so we can start paying cash for more expensive reconstruction and repair projects. So the average home value of $262,000 at the current rate that's proposed, the average tax bill will be $1,344. This is a historic chart showing the tax rate, INS in the yellow and M&O in the orange. On the INS rate, the 1604, we believe we can commit these following debt issuances in the following years and remain at that or lower. 1518, 9.4 million, Fire Station 4 at 15.5, FM 3009 extension 3.6, additional infrastructure in 24-25 and it's $8 million, about $35 million for public safety buildings, and another $15 million for general infrastructure in 2029. We believe we can issue those amounts and still decrease the INS tax rate by 2 cents, hopefully transferring it to the general fund and continue to pay cash. Here's a graph of the debt service modeling that plan. Tonight is a public hearing as well. There is no specific motion because we are below the no new revenue tax rate. But it is a tax rate vote, so we do need a supermajority. So we need at least 5 ayes to approve the tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Once again, this is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Okay. I don't think there's any comments from council.
I could give you a dissertation on zero-based financing, but okay, maybe not.
So you want to make a motion?
You need to read the verbiage to that, right?
There is no specific verbiage for this one since it's below the...
So I will make a
Well,
motion,
good,
and he can second it.
and I'll second it.
All right.
Okay, so motion's been made to approve ordinance 21T39 by Councilmember Hayward and second by Councilmember Scagliola. Any comments from council? Go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have a supermajority. Oh. We have the roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide the roll call confirmation for consent agenda items 1 through 8 and discussion items 9 through 16.
Yes, sir. Consent agenda items 1 through 8. The motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 9, ordinance number 21M40 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Dalla. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 10, resolution number 21R86. A motion was made by Councilmember Scagliola, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 11, ordinance number 21S27. A motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Scagliola, and Brown voted yes. Councilmember Scott, Councilmember Hayward voted no. Motion passed. Item number 12, ordinance number 21S36 with a modification of the PDD with basic M1-GB2. Motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Scagliola, and Brown voted yes. Councilmember Scott voted no. Motion passed. Item number 13, ordinance number 21S32 on first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 14, ordinance number 21S33. Motion was made by Councilmember Whitaker, seconded by Councilmember Scott. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 15, ordinance number 21T38 on first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Davis, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 16, ordinance number 21T39, first reading. Motion was made by Councilmember Hayward, seconded by Councilmember Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla, Councilmembers Davis, Scott, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. All right, we'll move on to requests and announcements. Our city manager, Dr. Brown, any further announcements?
I have no further announcements,
Okay.
Mayor.
Council, any possible updates or information requested from staff? Council, is there any possible items you'd like to place on the future agenda? Announcements by council members or events they attended. Mayor Pro Tem Dalla?
The only thing I had was attending the subcommittee meeting this afternoon.
All right. Councilmember Davis?
Nothing, sir.
Councilmember Scott?
Not at this time.
Councilmember Whitaker?
I attended 2 ribbon cuttings, State Farm and Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, which is aerial yoga, and other classes in the city of Cibolo, and also the Watchdog Elite IT, which is also in the city of Cibolo. So supported those businesses. The TML Region 7 dinner and meeting, very well put together and beneficial. And the subcommittee meeting this afternoon on PDD standards, new zoning district, and tree mitigation. It was excellently run, and it was a good turnout. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Scagliola?
Yeah, I think Councilwoman Whitaker, you did an excellent job chairing that meeting. Even if you had to say so yourself, but I would have mentioned it. But anyway, also thanks to Mr. James for so succinctly putting the pieces of the puzzle together. That's all I have.
Councilmember Hayward?
Yes, I attended 2 ribbon cuttings in Cibolo, the Watchdog Elite. Great IT guy, and talked to him. He's really from Buda, but they gave him office out here in the area because he's out here doing a whole lot of IT work. ribbon cutting for the Alex Hartman State Farm, and as she said, woefully made and fearfully and woefully. Yeah, it was aerial yoga. Yeah, not for me, but it's for somebody. I did the ribbon cutting today at the chamber. It was a plaque presentation for biz incentives. The group that did it, Carol and Marco, I thought they'd been part of the chamber for a while. Found out today that it's actually been a year, but they've been to everything. Also, they had the board meeting for the TMRS Benefit Advisory Board in Austin. We looked at changes that we can make to the benefits for members that participate in the Texas Municipal League retirement system. And just a note that a lot of people do not know that at TMRS, not that it's a great thing, because that's not what you're looking to do, but they do give a $7,500 death benefit to the spouse of or the loved one. But we've got some good changes in mind that we have to get with the state of Texas because they govern TMRS. They don't give us money, they just govern it, and we have to use political capital to get some of the things we want. I was also invited to serve on the TAMCC, so that's the Texas Association of Mayors and City Councils, for the nominating committee for our vice president for that organization, which is a part of TML. We had our TML Region 7 workshop in which I'm the president. We had a great time doing human model behavior. Jay Johnson from J2 Leadership was our presenter. He did a fantastic job, got us out of our seats. Some of us thought we were one type of personality for DISC, and then as he talked more, we realized we might have been somewhere else, but it was a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. Great food, and we did that at the Hilton Garden Convention Center. And I just want to shout out to Donna Louder, EDC director from Live Oak. She did a fantastic job handling everything to make sure we got everything. They also sponsored some of the money so that we didn't have to pay full price for the rental of the place because we didn't meet our quite number that we were hoping for. But we understand it might have been COVID. And it was a great turnout. And then we had a host of, matter of fact, I don't have the whole list with me, but our attorney, Mr. Santee, works for one of those companies, Dent Navarro, gave us some funds for that. So there's a lot of companies. And also I have to thank Schertz Bank because at the last minute they pulled out and gave us some money when it wasn't budgeted for them. So that was great. And Randolph Brooks gave us some good things from the city. The new TML president will take effect. All these offices will take effect in October. I will no longer be the TML Region 7 president. I will now be your board representative, which is on the legislative side. So anytime the state is in legislation, I'll be back and forth between here and Austin, making sure that we get the right legislation for the cities and for the residents, and we don't have any issues with them constantly coming down and trying to take care of our local stuff. Your new president will be Mayor Pro Tem Joel Hicks from Cibolo. Your vice president will be Mayor Victor Contreras from the city of Marion. Our secretary will continue to be the city manager of Balcones Heights, who does a fantastic job also making me look well and our region look well. And then our treasurer will be our simply fantastic city secretary, Brenda Dennis, who does a good job at making sure we spend the right amount of money and not too much. The other thing I attended was the Schertz animal adoption at the animal shelter. That went really well within the first couple of hours. They had adopted about everything that was adoptable. And that was a good thing for them as they're getting ready for the HVAC to be done. And I think that's pretty much all I've done this week or over the weeks. And I missed y'all on the 24th, but I had to celebrate my 30th wedding anniversary.
Councilmember Brown.
Happy anniversary. I'm glad you could fit it in. The TML event was really good. Well done. So I had a good time. Thanks.
All right. The time is now 9:05. We stand adjourned. Do you have the